Widdowson, CBE, Principal and Chief Executive of New College Durham. Ryan Gibson, the National Facilitator for Careers Education at the North East LEP. Kate Davis, the Partner Manager at the NCS Trust. And NCS graduate, Monica Hardcastle. So first off, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name's Harry and I'm an NCS graduate of 2016. And in terms of the positive destinations that I've had with NCS, I've had the opportunity to be involved with so many fantastic things with NCS. And for me, it's gave me so many fantastic skills and really filled out my CV. I'm the sort of person who loves always doing something. So NCS has been there to fill that gap in my life really, and I've managed to get so many opportunities out of it and meet many people through it as well. I started off with the main programme, not really being that much of an outgoing person. I usually stayed indoors, played games with the computer, that sort of thing. And now I basically am doing something all the time and I'm never stopping with things. And that's thanks to the NCS programme. And I'd also like to talk about all the fantastic extension opportunities that are available to NCS graduates. So I started off really with the NCS Leaders Programme back in 2016, which was a fantastic opportunity which heavily focused around leadership and giving us them skills to go forward a bit more as a graduate, to help us with things in life that we do through NCS, and also just generally with skills that would be really important for the workplace or just general life skills as well. Also, through NCS Leaders, we took part in a variety of workshops with that. So we met with people like Enactus and Radio 1. Enactus focus on social action, and Radio 1 were there to talk about everything that we can do in terms of them with social action and discussing a bit more the press relationship side of things as well. Also, more recently, last year, I took part in a fantastic opportunity with NCS called Passchendaele, which was to commemorate 100 years from World War I. And that took part in Belgium, which was a really big national event with the BBC and DCMS, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. And as part of that, we went down as graduates to help with the ceremonies of the event. So things from general crowd management to also handing over the wreaths live on BBC, which we did with the military, which is quite the nerve-wracking experience working with the military, but I was expecting it to be a lot more scary, like with one of the top military people in the UK. It turns out he was the nicest guy in the world, actually. And everything out would be like dead precise, but it was one of the most memorable moments of my life, and I'll never forget that moment. And I'll always remember the exact moment when all of the bands started playing as well, and all of the petals started falling down from the roof. It was actually an incredible moment for me. And that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we got as NCS graduates. And more recently, over this weekend, we're going to be commemorating Armistice again. This one's down in London, so there's a few of the NCS graduates here who will also be taking part in that. And it just goes to show some of the fantastic opportunities that you can do with NCS. And all of these opportunities have really changed me as a person. And I never did things like public speaking before NCS as well. And the amount of opportunities where I've had to do things like public speaking and do things outside of my comfort zone, which is the main thing I've done with NCS really, has really influenced me as a person and made me a better person as a result of it. And I'm so glad that I've had NCS there to push me in that way, with all of the fantastic things I've been able to do. So yeah, if it wasn't for NCS, none of that would have been able to happen for me. And in the future, we need more graduates to be able to take part in these fantastic opportunities to help develop them as people. So people like me who were in that situation a couple of years ago where you don't really do that much, and now I've got so much that I can talk about that I've been able to do thanks to NCS. That's why this programme's here, to make a difference to all of us in so many different ways. That's enough about me now. So I'm going to hand over to our guests. So first of all, I'd like to say to John, as the principal of New College Durham, you'll know firsthand the various destinations that your students reach after studying. That could be jobs, apprenticeships, university courses, or anything other with further study as well. So how do you develop the college's offer and curriculums to ensure your learners access the very best destinations?
Like a relay competition with this, I think, so we'll see how we go on later on. Yeah, complicated question. I'll try and give a simple answer. The first thing is to make our students confident about asking questions, and therefore making the choice that's best for them, giving them the best sort of information, finding things out. And something you just said then, just taking a bit of a risk sometimes, and maybe thinking about things they wouldn't do before, and thinking about themselves as people that they might not really see themselves. So one of the problems we have is a lot of students come along with fairly low aspirations. They don't really know what they're capable of. So trying to instill that into them is really important, and that's why we got involved with NCS. But also it's a bit more than just about what we teach students in terms of subjects, because although employers are interested in that, and obviously qualifications are important, employers employ people, and they want to look at people and look at the qualities those people have and see how they fit in, and see how they can contribute to the business and be proactive and take the initiative, all those things that, again, you've made reference to there. So it's really, really important that we don't just think about, certainly the young people who come to us are just empty vessels into which we pour knowledge and skills, but they're actually people who are going to develop over time, and actually these days continue to develop and change jobs and careers really over quite a long working life. So that ability to rise to new challenges, to try to do things differently and do different things, really quite central to what we want to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. And like, one thing I've said to a lot of people as well is I actually really enjoy interviews because of the many things I've been able to do. And a lot of people are like, you what? to me. But it just goes to show there is so much more like past the standard education that you need to do as well. So it's fantastic to hear that. I hear that also the college was at the forefront of the term time National Citizen Service, and you took part in the pilot for the project back in 2017. So why is New College Durham committed to NCS, and how has the implementation fared over the past year, and what have the benefits been for learners there?
Yeah, we did volunteer. I think that's the right way of putting it. We volunteered our students, actually, which is better. And we actually have about nearly 200 out there somewhere now in the wilds. I'm sure it's been nice and cold today. They've been thanking me for volunteering the college for this, but it's good for them. And so we hope around 200 have gone. We hope around 200 come back as well, so that's always good. So, I've forgotten the question now. Why did we do it? Well, again, it goes back to what I've just said, that coming to college should be about more than just getting qualifications. That's really, really important. That's why we're there ultimately. But it's also about that personal development. It's about making new friends. It's about coming into a new environment. So we started college courses in September. Over half the students were new. We'll be working with people alongside people they've never met before. And when you look at some of the communities that our students come from, it can be quite small villages out in the countryside, they don't have a wide circle of friends and people. So it's really important we get every opportunity to actually give them those experiences to meet new people, but in a supported way. It's not for everybody. So what we've actually concentrated on is really trying to identify those students who don't join in to things, who haven't joined youth organisations or youth clubs or whatever it is when they've been younger, perhaps because where they live is a bit isolated and that just isn't available, or things like youth and community centres have been closing down. So we're looking for things that actually fill that gap and give them that opportunity. So we're particularly pleased that on the groups of students that have gone out, we've got students with special educational needs who have gone there, because we want the NCS programme to be totally inclusive, to actually include everybody, students of all abilities, all backgrounds. That's really, really important to us. And that's why we like to go for large numbers. But that's still only about a tenth of the college. And we're trying to get another cohort out in, I think, around about March, of similar size. So it's really getting to build up a head of steam and momentum now. What we really like is for every student who comes along to actually see participating as part of their programme of study at the college. Really something that isn't, we can't make it compulsory, but as near as done, we try to, because we really think it's important they have those extra experiences.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So schools, colleges and programs like NCS play a big part in upskilling young people. Do you think that employers should do more to create meaningful opportunities and work experience for students so that they're more work ready?
I think there are questions for other people later on actually, so you'll be pleased to hear that. I find myself giving almost the same answer because when you're talking to employers, they're looking at what that person is about, what qualities they have, you know, whether they can fit in with what that employer wants and whether they can become independent and make a positive contribution to that employer's business, whatever it is, whether it's making cars at Nissan, whether it's working in the public sector, whether it's working for a charity, whatever it is, whatever level they're working at, they're looking for people and people with those qualities that I've already talked about a couple of times. And I think work experience is great, and every student that we have certainly has the opportunity to do that. But it can also be a bit limited as well. If you're going out doing the same thing, that could be great. You get into the routine of turning up on time and all the rest of it. But you need to also, I think, talk to employers. We need to talk to employers about that personal development work. It isn't just about learning a particular skill and doing it in the workplace. It's about what you're going to be doing in 5, 10, 20 years' time and making sure you've got the right foundations for that and making sure that over that time, certainly when students leave the college after 2 or 3 years, they're able to make decisions and they're confident about making decisions and they're confident about going out there into the world of work and making that positive contribution.
Yeah, thank you, John. I'm also joined on the panel by Ryan Gibson from the North East LEP, who many of our delegates from schools will know as the facilitator for the Good Career Guidance Benchmarks Pilot. So Ryan, for NCS graduates and non-educational stakeholders in attendance especially, do you want to explain a little bit about what the Gatsby benchmarks are and what they set out to achieve?
Yeah, I'll try to keep that brief, seeing it's kind of 9:10. Just building on what John said though, a survey back in 2015 by the North East Chamber of Commerce found that 66% of business leaders felt that young people weren't prepared for the workplace. That was reinforced in 2016 by the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, who concluded that 8 out of 10 school leavers weren't ready for work. Prince's Trust in 2017 found a third of school leavers were worried about progressing and succeeding in work. In the same survey, 13% of young people felt their life would amount to nothing and they felt powerless to change that. So that's all really kind of depressing, I suppose. And so the Gatsby Foundation, which is Lord Sainsbury's charitable foundation, back in 2015 commissioned an ex-head teacher, Professor Sir John Holman, to investigate what careers guidance looks like when it's good. And I say careers guidance, and I don't just mean careers advice, not just the careers interview that we can probably all remember, or sitting at the computer answering 50 questions and being told that you're going to be a bus driver. I talk about careers guidance, and he made 6 international visits and he identified what he called 8 benchmarks. And those are simple things like the school and college having a careers program, getting young people to access labour market information and intelligence and use that in their decision making, the tracking of destinations and the tackling of stereotypes so we can build that back into careers programs in school, connecting what's taught in classrooms to its relevance in the world, having meaningful encounters with employers and employees, experiencing different types of workplaces, thinking about and experiencing different progression providers, so spending time in colleges, at universities, with apprenticeship providers, with training providers, with internship providers, and then as a young person having access to a trained personal guidance professional who can help you make sense of all of the information and encounters that you've received. So kind of the Gatsby Foundation were really looking at how can a young person be supported in their school and college to make fully informed decisions about their future.
Great, and why do you think it's important that schools align to meet these benchmarks as well? And what were the outcomes that you saw from the North East pilot, and how can NCS support them as well?
The North East pilot was testing the implementation of these 8 benchmarks in 16 schools and colleges, and that started in 2015 and it concluded in 2017, and it concluded with what the Department of Education called transformational impact, which was superb because it then resulted in a new national career strategy. So I suppose the first part of the answer to the question is why schools should do it. Well, actually they're kind of compelled to do it now through a new national strategy and updated statutory guidance, which requires every school to name a careers leader who's responsible for implementing the benchmarks across their organisation. I say school, I mean schools and colleges, and they have to publish their careers programme on the website and say how they will work with partners to deliver that careers programme. Why did the Department for Education say it was transformational? Well, because we saw a real difference on the ground in schools and colleges, and there's many of those in the room. If you want some stats, in one school we saw the NEET figure, so those young people who'd progressed to be not in education, employment or training, that decreased from 60% to 8% in 2 years, which means much more positive outcomes for young people. Where destinations were already strong, we saw improvements in sustained destination measures. So not only were young people going on to do something, they were doing something that was right for them because they were continuing to do that and continuing to progress. We saw schools reintroduce work experience in different ways, so that it was a meaningful experience, as John was talking about. We saw schools and colleges thinking about how they could connect things like careers fairs to kind of growth sectors in the employment market and linking that to labour market information so that young people could visualise their future. There was a report that came out, wasn't there, fairly recently, which said that essentially, I think it was career dream versus career reality. And it basically concluded that if a young person hasn't got the chance to see it, then they're very unlikely to want to go on and do it. So we've seen tremendous impact in the North East. It's resulted in a new national strategy. 159 of our secondary schools are all implementing the benchmarks. All 9 of the region's colleges are working towards the benchmarks and implementing them. There's a real collaboration around this and a real movement to improve all of the stats I mentioned at the beginning about young people not being prepared to help them become much more prepared.
Yeah, great. So in your previous role, you led the careers education at St. Joseph's Catholic Academy in South Tyneside. And while you were there, the school had earned the NCS Champion School status for their support of the programme. Did you feed the engagement of programmes like NCS into any Ofsted reporting on careers and positive destination outcomes? And why was this so important?
First of all, I knew we were NCS Champion School status because I led that provision. What I didn't know was that we were one of 35 schools nationally, so I'm tremendously proud of that now, even more than I was at the beginning of tonight. In terms of Ofsted, we didn't do NCS for Ofsted. We did it for all the reasons John mentioned. The personal development of young people, building character and resilience, wrapping a support network around a young person and a school where maybe that didn't exist at home, giving them the confidence to take part in things. I remember being inspected in 2015, I think it was, and we had to demonstrate a thirst for learning, I think it was, and we were striving for outstanding in behaviour and learning, and sometimes that's difficult in heaven on a wet Friday afternoon, and so what we were able to do was through NCS, the young people, our kids and students were able to talk about the positive experiences that they'd had. They were able to talk about the support actually that the school had put in place to give them the confidence to take advantage of the opportunities. One of the things that we were really proud of was that we had a really small dropout rate, and that was because NCS came in at lunchtimes and did drop-ins, they did all of the assemblies, they came into our tutor groups. They basically lived in the school to support the kids to take advantage of those opportunities. If you do want me to talk about Ofsted, I would say the phrase in the handbook is appropriate preparation for the next stage. What better thing than NCS for that? and that feeds into all of the things that employers would be looking for, and everything that you demonstrated in the introduction actually. So much to say, so many experiences to draw on, such an interesting story to tell. If we can replicate that for every young person, each and every young person through the Gatsby framework, then I think we're on to a winner.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Ryan. And now over to Kate. My question for you is, how do we go about creating positive impacts for the young people who are from the most deprived areas of the country?
Thank you. I have to say it's always great when all of your fellow panellists have got lots of lovely notes and you were told 2 minutes before what your questions are going to be, so hold tight everyone. Actually, this is a really easy question to answer because for any of you that are involved with NCS, you know we're all about inclusion. And you may have heard me mention earlier about the school coordinator pilot. We started that in 6 of they were actually identified by the Department for Education's opportunity areas. And these are some of the toughest areas in the country with the highest depravity, the highest child poverty, which we are part of that as well in this region here. So we feel really strongly about going into those regions because we know that that's where the young people get the most out of NCS. We can go to all the areas where you've got your independent schools. In fact, we were having a conversation about this earlier. They were going to do stuff like this anyway. It's really important for us to go to those areas that need us the most. And actually talking about, this is quite a poignant time to be talking about this because autumn, more than any other time of the year for NCS, is really important in terms of including people. And we've had more programmes go out this year than ever, which are bespoke to help other people and other groups join in with NCS. And I'm not just talking about your SEN groups, or your construction courses who would never have done NCS with us anyway. We're talking about those young people who, they don't even go to school, they don't have access to anything, they can't afford to get on the bus to get to the NCS programme. So we recognised that this year. What we did was we had, for the very first time, a pot of money put aside for an inclusion fund. And people were asked to bid and put forward their ideas as to why did we need it. So we had fabulous ideas come through, like young people who were deaf and needed to have a signing person come with them, so they were able to do the programme. Yep, we approved that, tick, happy. There were lots and lots of examples of those kind of things where these are young people that wouldn't be able to come on the programme, whether it's because of depravity or whether it's because diversity issues, whatever it is. So that's something we found's worked really, really well, and we're going to continue to do that. So we're going to get to a point where it's written into all of our providers' contracts that there will be an inclusion fund every single year so that we can access those young people for whatever reason it is that they can't get on programme. That shouldn't be a reason for them not coming on programme, so we're going to try and get rid of that barrier and help them to come onto that. And I think also, just another really good example of that I saw myself just a couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to be part of the Kickstart programme, which is actually the equivalent of what Harry talked about going on, the Leaders programme. And this is where we have all of the members of the local youth boards, and they come together and we basically set them up to be ready to go out on their programme. And during that, 10% of the young people that are on our local youth boards have some kind of challenge, which means it's not necessarily as easy for them to be part of that National Youth Board as possible. So, for example, we have some young people with disabilities physically, so we had to put on extra provision for them. We had some people that had some other additional needs, so we put on extra staff for them. If we can do that to the level where they can become national youth board members, which is fabulous, that's where we're aiming to get to. So we want to be able to find a way of getting them on programme, and this is the way of doing it, regardless of what that challenge is to get them on programme, which it's going to be something that's going to be really important for the North East, because we do have some of those challenges here. Highest teen pregnancy rate, if I'm not wrong, Maxine, is that? So we're going to try and support with that and get these people on programme as much as we can.
Cheers, yeah. I do have another question for you, and you sort of touched on it a bit, so if you can expand on it, that would be great. But has any research from NCS given any indication as to how the programmes improve the social mobility for young people from different backgrounds?
So you told you didn't know the questions. So in terms of social mobility, it's such an abstract concept. Nobody really knows what it means. I don't know what it means, and I work for the Trust. It's always been part of what we are and who we are and what we do. And it's actually become a core piece of our 5-year strategy in terms of what we do. And it actually happens now, anytime we start a project strand at the Trust, we look at how is this related to social mobility, social cohesion, and understanding what does that actually mean, not in a big abstract concept, but how do we make that happen out on the ground. So we're looking at things like having national phase 1 programs. So you're not just meeting other people from your local area, you're meeting people from the other side of the country. They talk funny, they don't talk like you. That's what it really means to be mobile socially, and that's what we're looking at doing a lot more of. And I think, we have all of the stats to back up how we believe we're doing with social mobility, but I mean, Harry's journey, when did you start? You started your journey 2 and a bit years ago? Yeah. And we're still not sure where Harry is in his stage of social mobility, so it's very difficult to actually measure what that means for us, but feel free, go on the NCS Trust website, we've got all of our stats on there in terms of how we feel our young people are currently doing. But the thing with NCS that makes it so special is it's for life. It's a long-term thing. This might be something that helps you get that first job, which is great, that's what we want to do, but we'll never know how much this actually means until people like Harry are turning 30 and are probably running for Prime Minister. That's when we'll really know what kind of an impact we have. So we've got lots of interim data, which, like I say, if you're excited, then go ahead and read the website. But I think for any of you that actually work on the programme or work in schools with young people, I think you can see the benefit, and that will probably say a lot more than a stat does.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. So now over to Monica. After listening to John, Ryan and Kate's comments about making sure that the young people gain those additional skills and opportunities that in turn boost the quality of their destinations, do you think that NCS graduates will have an advantage when applying for jobs in university places?
Well, hello everyone, I'm Monica. I did NCS last year, and when I went to NCS, I knew no one. I just kind of turned up. And then I was thrust into a week of like, let's do kayaking and hike up a mountain with people I've never met, and let's figure out problems all together. So for employers, that's great. That was like a launch pad for loads of young people of let's do team working and problem solving, and let's just adapt to this new strange situation we found ourselves in. I'd also say I've done NCS, the programme, and then I did Kickstart, and then I've done Leaders. And there's one really common thing throughout all of that, and is that NCS love reflection. Every time you do a workshop, they're like, so what did you learn from that? What strengths did you identify there? What weaknesses? And you're there at first like, please just let me go for supper. But then you kind of think about it and go, oh no wait, this is important because now I get to really think about what just happened before I forget everything. So then that's a sort of like, the employers will see NCS grads and go, this is someone who adapts quickly, who thinks about things once they've done it, and before as well. And also, what would I say? What else would you get? Well, you'd have someone who's involved in their community. That's what NCS is all about. It's that social action. Let me go out of my front door and help someone else, like my next door neighbour, for example, who's probably going through a different problem than I am, but I never know if I didn't go out my front door. So I think employers would want an NCS grad because that's someone who's ingrained in their community, and that's who you'd want. You wouldn't want someone who's a hermit living on a mountain far, far away. You'd want someone who's there, who's rooted and connected. What else? I think that's kind of it. Yeah, back to Harry.
Couldn't have put it better. Yeah, so the next question is, how have you drawn upon your NCS experience to access new opportunities, and what sort of extension projects have you been involved with as well?
Well, I did NCS last year, like I said, and since then I've done a lot in a year. I've been to different places in the country, and if it wasn't for that first initial NCS programme of get out your front door, do something, experience something new, learn something new, I wouldn't be able to do half the things I went on to do. I mean, I learned how to take the train by myself. That was something that was so scary and foreign to me, but I learned that because of NCS. So I've drawn upon, and I don't do, NCS is a big part of my life, but it's not all of my life. So I do a lot of drama, for example, and that involves sometimes going away. My first major experience of going away for a long period of time was NCS, so I wouldn't be able to have done other things I've done outside of that in the arts without NCS. In terms of my extension, what I've done there, I've done Kickstart, which was great. I went to a place in the middle of nowhere, Stoke, and I met 300 other grads from all across the country, and Northern Ireland. They came too, and it was great. I've met people who went to private school, who state school, people who speak totally different from me, who have totally different ideas on how the world should be. But that's great. That's all about learning about other people instead of being in my own little bubble of people. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And also, like, I've done NCS Leaders, and that was a brilliant week away, and I was in London, which was mental, and I learned how, like, more, like, leadership skills, like, not just kind of telling people, do this now, but kind of supporting them to make their own decisions, and NCS has done a lot for me. So, thank you guys. Thank you everyone on this, and you know what, thank you everyone for just promoting it, because else I wouldn't be here right now, blabbering on, so thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. So that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of our panellists for this evening. So please give all the panellists a huge round of applause.